Good day, everyone. My name is Siti Rayhala Abdi. We will now start with mortality and psychosocial development. So psychosocial development is about how we grow and change throughout life based sa ating interactions with the world. And at each stage, we face different challenges. And one big challenge there is understanding and dealing with the fact that tayo ay hindi mabubuhay habang buhay or forever. In infancy, ang main challenge dito is building trust and not being overly suspicious of everything. If this is done well, it sets the stage for a hopeful outlook on life. This positive outlook on life affects how we deal with risks, changes, and eventually death. So let's say if someone has had a hopeful and positive attitude throughout life, it's more likely na they will approach death with the belief na whatever comes after, it will be good. For example, imagine a baby who's well taken care of, loved, and learns to trust the world. As this child grows up, they might face challenges with a sense of hope and optimism. And when they think about death, they might see it as a natural part of life and will believe that something good awaits them afterward. So, parang it's like building a foundation of trust and hope throughout life. And yung foundation na yon, it influences how we view and approach the idea of death pag darating na tayo dyan. The stage of psychosocial development known as identity versus role confusion. It happens during puberty or adolescence, and it's a time when individuals are figuring out who they are and what they want sa buhay nila. Yung mga tanong na, where am I going and what do I want? Ito yung central sa phase na to. While yung death might seem distant or malayo pa, yung process kasi of creating a personal identity during adolescence actually it acknowledges the finiteness of life. So it's like saying na, okay, I have this one life, so the choices I make should matter. So imagine a teenager na nag-explore ng kanyang different interest, hobbies, values. So as they try to understand themselves, they are essentially giving meaning to their life. Even though they might not be actively thinking about that, the very act of shaping their identity implies an awareness that life is limited and that their choices should have significance. So the resolution of this crisis involves not just forming an identity, but also it recognizes yung importance of making meaningful choices in the context of life's unique nature. So it's about understanding that what you do in your life matters, even if thoughts about death might be just in your background. The crisis of generativity versus stagnation, which typically occurs in middle adulthood. It involves reflecting on the legacy one leaves behind. Like, it's a time when, or ang isang tao ay they start thinking beyond their immediate concerns and consider the broader impact of their existence. Yung mga tanong na, what can I do for future generation and how can I contribute to the well-being of others even after I'm gone? Yun yung mga tanong na central dito. People kasi in this stage start contemplating how they can use their resources, their skills, and their creativity to ensure a positive future for those who come after them or sa mga susunod sa kanila. For example, a person in their 40s or 50s might actively engage in activities that contribute to the community, like mentoring or teaching younger generations or work towards creating a positive impact that extends beyond their lifetime. It's like parang nag-plant sila ng seeds for a better future even though they might not be around to witness the full growth of those efforts. This crisis highlights a shift from immediate concerns like raising children or caring for aging parents to a broader, more legacy-oriented perspective. Like it's about making a meaningful and lasting impact on the world and acknowledging that there will be a time when they won't be there to directly nurture and maintain what they have built. Next is in later adulthood naman, the developmental task becomes developing a perspective on death. The crisis of integrity versus despair is about to terms with the fact that death is approaching. And achieving integrity dito means building on earlier strengths to appreciate personal accomplishments, cherishing meaningful relationships, and look back on life with satisfaction. So yung mga tao dito in later adulthood who have this sense of integrity can celebrate life even as death becomes more imminent. Kumbaga dito, they've reached a point where they can reflect on their achievements, the connections they've made, and find a sense of fulfillment sa life that they have lived. Yung ability to celebrate life in the face of impending death dito becomes a model for younger generations. It's like saying na even though the end is approaching, I can find joy and meaning in the life I've led. Itong attitude na to becomes a valuable example for younger people, showing them that it's possible na i-confront yung reality of mortality with a sense of completeness and acceptance. And finally, the crisis of immortality versus extinction. It's about finding confidence in continuity. It's a stage where ang isang tao ay ready na, though not necessarily excited to close one chapter of their life, knowing that another will follow. Even in the face of the possibility of death, there's a sense of joy in being alive and a certainty that one's life is intricately connected to all life. So imagine an older person who, despite knowing that the end is approaching, feels a sense of assurance that life doesn't simply end, but continues in some form. Closing one door dito means accepting the natural progression of life while being confident that there's something meaningful and connected beyond that closed door. The experience of dying and death has undergone significant changes over time. Like centuries ago kasi, it was common for people to die in their homes and yung process of dying was often a more intimate and familial affair. This was especially true for women giving birth. Um, um, where childbirth kasi itself posed a significant risk. So, let's proceed with definition of death. The way we define death has changed over time. Before kasi it was mainly based on the absence of a heartbeat and breathing, known as cardiopulmonary death. And itong definition na to stuck around for centuries. However, in 1981, the President's Commission for the Ethical Study of Problems in Medical and Biomedical and Behavioral Research introduced a new set of criteria for determining death, especially whole brain death. This criteria include things like no spontaneous movement, no breathing for at least an hour, no response to even painful stimuli, and more. Nag-add din sila dito ng requirement for a flat electroencephalogram or EEG for at least 10 minutes, which means no brain activity. This is listed in the PPT. So, to put it simply, we used to define death based sa heart and lung stopping. Pero ngayon, we also consider the complete lack of brain activity as another way to determine death. Besides the 8 criteria for whole brain death, it's important to rule out other conditions like yung mga taong in deep coma. Different parts of the brain handle different life functions. The brainstem manages heartbeat, and breathing, while the cortex deals with sensory integration and cognitive functions. So, eto, possible daw kasi sa brainstem na mag-work even when the cortex ay hindi. This situation is called a persistent vegetative state. If you look at the 8 criteria, you'll notice that someone in this state technically hindi papatay. Pag merong taong nasa ganitong state, it creates a tough situation for their family, the doctors also, and sometimes the courts or yung korte. Kasi they have to make a challenging decision of whether to let the person continue in the state or make the difficult choice to allow them to die. Advanced derivatives. Because marami dyang technologies that can keep a person alive even if they can't communicate, it's recommended that adults create something called an advanced derivative, which is pwede siyang maging living will or durable power of attorney, like a legal document. And these documents help communicate a person's wishes about life-sustaining procedures when facing a terminal illness or imminent death. They also let someone be designated to make decisions on their behalf. A living will, for example. It allows a person to tell doctors not to use certain procedures to keep them alive if they can't communicate. Some people even wear bracelets saying they have a living will or don't want to be resuscitated. The durable power of attorney naman lets someone make decisions about money, property, and healthcare for the person. This is useful because it helps avoid conflicts between person's wishes and what their family might feel obligated to do to keep them alive. Parang it's a way for individuals to have a say in what happens to them even when they can't speak for themselves.